Hello viewers and welcome to yet another live-action commentated match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today I'm pleased to present you with a video sent in by none other than Pejhmon Kamaie, as well as his partner Shirin. To the right we happen to see not just our initiative token but also our second torture specialist Dark Eldar faction warlord Urien Rakarth, piloted by Pejhmon, and on the left, with a focus on mobility, we happen to have our second Eldar faction warlord, Baharroth, played by Shirin. In assessing our opening layout of planets, planet number 1 is going to be Planum, which allows players to move a non-warlord unit, while planet number 2 is Karnath, which affords players the opportunity to trigger the battle ability of any other planet in play. Planet number 3 is going to be Barlas, the random card discard planet, and planet number 4 is going to be Yvarn, which allows players to put an army unit from their hand directly into play into their HQ, and our fifth and final planet is going to be Farron, which routes non-warlord units. So our players have drawn their hands, they're still collecting their starting resources. What's going to be interesting about this video is that this is going to be actually using the card pool from the Decree of Ruin War Pack, the first war pack in the Planetfall cycle. So there's certainly myriad new options available for Dark Eldar, Eldar, and their allied factions, but conventional play here, we see our first deploy action of the game is going to be a Warlock Destructor played out to planet number 1 by Urien. So it's a powerful combat unit. There's probably not going to be much that Baharroth can do to contest that, especially considering that our Urien player happens to possess the initiative token. But we see a Bealtan Guardians put out to planet number 5, excellent 2-command icon unit there. So at the moment, it's back to Urien. He's certainly got plenty of resources left, 5 tokens for him, 6 for Shirin. What's nice about Urien is that any of those torture events he of course gets at a discount. Power from Pain could be a sacrifice a army unit during combat. Something like Searing Brand can deal unpreventable damage directly to a unit. We actually see a new Decree of Ruin support put into play. That's the holding cell. So as soon as one of Shirin's units is destroyed by an attack, Pejhmon can simply trigger the reaction associated with that support, attach that unit to holding cell, and she'll no longer be able to deploy copies of the attached unit. And considering that that's a first round play, if we end up seeing the signature Baharroth's Hawks attached to that holding cell, that could be an incredibly debilitating blow this early on. So Urien definitely gets some interesting new tools in Decree of Ruin. There's the Prophetic Farseer, which can discard shield cards, holding cell. There's even Stalking Urgul if you can manage to distribute a fair number of damage on your enemy units, but something like that probably doesn't work nearly so well with Urien as it would Kith. But there's certainly many new options remaining to be seen. I believe that Shirin's actually running the Wraithguard Revenant in her deck, so if at any point she wins a command struggle at a green strongpoint planet, that'll afford her the opportunity to put that 3-attack 2-hit point unit directly into play from her hand or discard pile, so definitely something to look out for. But yet another unit that we've seen many a time by now. We see a Shrouded Harlequin put out to planet number 4, so that's not something we generally see every day, but it's a pretty powerful unit, swings for 2, costs 2, 1 command icon, which is incredibly valuable when you're playing Eldar. You want to be going strong economy, and we end up seeing another copy of the Shrouded Harlequin put out to planet number 1. When any of those units are destroyed, it basically allows you to pick and choose an enemy unit to exhaust. It could be Warlord, Synapse, Token, Army, does not matter, but signature army unit there to planet number 2, played by Pejhmon. We've got 1 of 2 copies of the Twisted Rax, 2 cost, 3 attack, 3 hit points. You can discard a torture card in order to ready it, so very powerful unit, and he actually put a copy of Promotion onto it so that he'll potentially be able to win command at planet number 2. So it looks as though Shirin is going to be fresh out of resources, and what better time than that to put a copy of Slith Mercs out to planet number 1 opposite a whopping 2 copies of the Shrouded Harlequin at that planet. So I'll be very curious indeed to see if Shirin can potentially win that first planet. Keep in mind that the initiative token is going to be in the hands of Pejhmon there, but whenever those Shrouded Harlequins die, they'll be able to basically tap out an enemy unit. But that's another copy of the Slith Mercenaries put out to planet number 4, trumping that Shrouded Harlequin. I think Baharroth is going to be able to quite conveniently go to planet number 2 to win command there, or he could just go to planet number 1, doesn't really matter either way. Okay, so Baharroth does go to planet number 2, Urien, wanting to avoid combat, goes to planet number 5. That'll allow him the opportunity to rout one of those army units at planet 4 or 5, but in regard to command here, those Slith Mercs win command at planet number 1. That's going to be Pejhmon collecting 1 card, 1 resource at planet number 1. Planet number 2 is going to be 1 card, 1 resource there for Shirin. Planet number 4 is going to be 1 resource to the right for Urien, and then planet number 5 is also going to be 2 resources for Urien, so not a bad showing whatsoever for, frankly, my favorite Dark Eldar Warlord, but let's see how combat is going to break down. There are no warlords present at planet number 1, but if Baharroth shifts to planet number 1, which I can only imagine he's going to do, that will be a great opportunity for him to not just dodge that incredibly dangerous Twisted Rax, but to potentially win combat at that planet. The Warlock Destructor is definitely pretty dangerous. Baharroth's presence at that planet is in a sense suboptimal. Like if he goes to planet number 1, he's going to be a nice target. Certainly Shrouded Harlequins aren't something that you're going to want to kill, even though they're very fragile, easy to destroy. They'll tap out your remaining attackers. So Baharroth can go to planet number 1, where he's a great target. Looks as though the Shrouded Harlequin is taking a swing at something. We end up seeing, I can't quite tell what that shield card is, but that's going to be 1 point of damage dealt to the Slith Mercenaries. The Slith Mercenaries, in return, are going to end up taking a swing at, I'm not exactly sure what. I can't tell if that's a Rakarth's Experimentations in the discard pile or not. But, like, the Slith Mercenaries could, okay, they're going to be bold. They're going to try to take a swing at the, it looks like the ready Shrouded Harlequin. Granted, they could block 2 points of damage, but as soon as that dies, that's going to be the Warlock. There we go, it's going to die, and that's the Warlock Destructor is exhausted. Baharroth himself is going to take a swing. I can only imagine kill off that Slith Mercenaries. There we go. That's going to bring us to the end of the combat round, and is the Warlock Destructor going to stay? At this point, he's going to be able to stay and kill off that Shrouded Harlequin. What would have been really nice there for Pejhmon is he could have won the battle at that planet potentially and used Planum to relocate his units to Karnath or whatever would have happened to be beneficial toward his victory condition, but it looks as though he's actually just deciding to run away. So he certainly did better in regard to income relative to Shirin, but that Warlock Destructor is going to end up costing him a resource during the following deploy phase. Only to really have him show up to combat exhausted. So otherwise, you know, that certainly could have gone better, I suppose. But Planum's battle ability is going to be activated. That's the Shrouded Harlequin being moved to Karnath. What's a shame is that Baharroth wouldn't have wanted to stand against that Twisted Rax by himself, because had he, like, attacked and become exhausted, we could have seen, you know, Rakarth's Experimentations discarded. So Twisted Rax attacks for 3, then it readies. Then we see Searing Brand discarded. It readies, attacks again for 3. Then Power from Pain or any number of other effects end up getting discarded. Soul Seizure, Dark Possession, any number of different options, but looks as though the first planet is going to be captured by Shirin there. That's going to be Urien killing the Bieltan Guardians, and it looks as though he has decided to capture the Bieltans in his holding cell. So that's going to deprive our Baharroth player of basically 2 additional copies of Bieltan Guardians, which is a 1 cost 2 command icon unit. We see our HQ phase come and go. That's going to be 4 resources and 2 cards for both of our players. Our new planet number 5 is going to be Ossus 4, which is the Steel 1 resource planet. Shirin now picks up the initiative token. Urien's got that Warlock Destructor in his HQ. Baharroth has a Shrouded Harlequin in his HQ. So it looks as though we did not actually see Planum triggered, and I'm not actually sure what battle ability that Urien did activate, or that Baharroth did activate. It certainly wasn't Barless, judging by the discard pile. It was not Yvarn. Perhaps it was, okay, sorry, it was moving, it must have been moving a Shrouded Harlequin to perhaps Yvonne, or maybe she didn't trigger it at all. But in any case, it's going to be Shirin's opportunity to take a deploy action. We see an Incubus Warrior, so that gives away her alliance. It's Dark Eldar, so now we know to expect tricks like Archon's Terror there from the left player. Probably not so much from Urien, considering it's going to be costing him a whopping 3 resources, but that's going to be 2 command for both players at planet number 1. That Twisted Rax is going to be an incredibly dangerous combat presence. Looks as though we've got 1 green and 1 blue icon there for Shirin, so she could potentially win as early as planet number 3 through blue technology icons. Looks as though she is passed, and now Urien is going to fill the board here with units. We see Bealtan Warp Spiders sitting at planet number 4. That's going to be when it's declared an attacker, you can pick a player, look at the top 2 cards of their deck, discard one of those cards. Interestingly, we see a new card here, the Eldar unit, the Prophetic Farseer, so it's a 2/4. When it comes into play, you look at the top 3 cards of a player's deck, you discard any of those cards that have shield icons that you'd like. Looks as though he ended up hitting on a Gift of Isha, so very nice little play, 1 command, 2/4 for 3 resources, and getting rid of a Gift of Isha seems like a pretty decent bargain. Our players have decided that Baharroth is going to go to planet number 2, and Urien is going to go push planet number 1. So let us see here. Command is going to be 1 card, 1 resource at planet number 1 for Urien. Planet number 2 is going to be 2 cards for Baharroth. Planet number 3 is going to be, looks like 1 resource there for Pejhmon. Planet number 4 is going to be 2 resources for Pejhmon. And planet number 5, because he put a Void Pirate into play, that's going to be 1 card and 2 resources there to the right for Pejhmon. Looks as though we saw a Wraithguard Revenant hit the table at some point and then bounce back to hand. Maybe Shirin ended up changing her mind about putting that unit into play, but like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be a 3 attack, 2 hit point unit that can interplay for free from your discard pile or from your hand in lieu of your winning the card and resource bonuses associated with a green strong point icon planet. So another unit apart from Broderick War and all of his signature cards that care about strong point, but we're going to be seeing combats here at least planet number 1. Baharroth might trigger a combat at planet number 2 or could shift to planet number 3, but the random 1 card discard is going to be pretty valuable indeed. Looks as though Baharroth is going to be a little bit ballsy and go to planet number 1. So we've got that copy of the Twisted Rax to contend with, which could be a tremendous mistake on Shirin's part, depending on how many shield icons she has in hand, depending on how many torture cards, not even events, but cards, things like Suffering, Pejhmon may have in hand. So we're going to see 1 combat this round. That's going to be a swing of 3 from the Incubus Warrior. That's going to be 2 points of damage onto the Twisted Rax thanks to that copy of Promotion. It's going to take a swing in return. That looks like maybe a copy of Empowered discarded to block 2 points of damage off Baharroth, but in any case, it was indeed a 2 shield icon card. Now Baharroth has a choice. Does Baharroth want to swing, try to potentially kill off the Twisted Rax at the risk of leaving himself exhausted for the multiple cards in Pejhmon's hand to come back and potentially bite her, just because Twisted Rax attacking multiple times for 3 each time is incredibly dangerous. She's going to exhaust Baharroth. I can only imagine that Baharroth is going to be attacking, and it's against the Warlock Destructor. Very interesting choice here. But let's see how that goes. That's, I believe, another copy of Rakarth's Experimentations discarded to ready that copy of Twisted Rax, and it's going to be able to attack for 3. Let's see if my, most darkest, biggest concerns, my nightmares are going to come true here. So the Twisted Rax are going to be able to take a swing soon, but Urien is actually using his opportunity to potentially kill off that Incubus Warrior. So that's going to be, I believe, I'm not sure what the topmost Eldar card of... I believe it's a Shrouded Harlequin in Baharroth's discard pile there for Gift of Isha. Certainly Incubus Warrior cannot be revived by Gift of Isha, so Urien ends up killing that unit. Keep in mind that any Bealtan Guardians are going to be locked in the holding cell, and there we go. We actually see a Gift of Isha played right there, and did I remember correctly? I most certainly did for once. So that's going to be a copy of the Shrouded Harlequin to take a swing at that Twisted Rax. And the Twisted Rax is going to be dead, and that means that is 1 wasted card to ready that unit. So I suppose it just kind of goes to show that under ideal circumstances, you probably want to wait to ready that unit until it's immediately available and prepared to attack. But all the same, maybe that spared Urien of a couple points of damage that Pejhmon didn't want him to take. And since we only have one planet remaining, I suppose there's a 1 in 4 chance of it being Iridial. So let's see what it ends up being. But for the moment, we've still got combat. We're going to come to the end of a combat round here. That Warlock Destructor is a 3/4, but note that Shirin has the initiative token, and our Dark Eldar player's hand is looking conspicuously low on shields. Baharroth is... well, he's got 1 more point of damage than Urien, but otherwise those two are equally matched, and even though a Warlock Destructor is a much stronger unit, if the Shrouded Harlequin can take a swing first and kill it off, if Shirin has another 2 shield icon card in hand, which I would say is a very low probability based on the 2 Gift of Isha, the Empower. Okay, things could look all the way bad here for Urien, so that's going to be the Warlock Destructor destroyed. That's going to be a swing at Baharroth, interestingly, and a copy of Superiority is discarded, so that's only going to be 1 point of damage to Baharroth. One of those units took a swing. Baharroth is going to take... Urien's going to take 2 points of damage and retreat. That's going to allow Karnath to be steal a resource, random discard, or rout a unit. What is it going to be? Okay, so it was going to be a resource, and that is... what exactly is that? That's blue. 2 blue technology icons, 1 red and 1 green for Shirin, so she's doing very well. All she's going to have to do is now play all of her units very, very heavily on Yavharn in order to potentially win this game here. So it's going to come down to, can Urien stop that? Urien's going to probably won't have Archon's Terror. He's certainly got plenty of resources for things like Klavex Warleader. We see a Visions of Agony played, so that's going to be a 2-cost card. I believe it's 2. And that is going to... okay, so it looks as though we actually see a Nullify. So there we go. I thought she was just putting her most desirable card on the table or something, but yes, Baharroth exhausts to nullify Visions of Agony. That would have been the opportunity for Pejhmon to gaze lovingly upon his partner's hand and pick 1 card to discard, but she did prevent that effect. So, planet number 1, we've got that Shrouded Harlequin opposite Prophetic Farseer. 2/1's not going to be able to do much against a 2/4. It is a random card discard on the line, but it is not necessary at all for Baharroth's victory condition here. So Baharroth has currently got Incubus Warrior and Shrouded Harlequin at planet number 2. If she can reinforce that very heavily, she'll probably do all right. We do see an Incubus Warrior played out by Urien, and the more units he can fill that planet with, the more likely he is going to be able to kind of pull this one out. So, let's see. In regard to what Urien could try to bring to bear to win this, he's got 1 more copy of Twisted Rax in his deck. He could have Searing Brand, since Shirin doesn't have too many cards in hand. Unpreventable damage dealt out to an army unit that happens to be at the same planet as your Warlord, unless its controller can discard 2 cards, can be nasty in either obliterating units or just forcing a lot of shield cards to be discarded. Baharroth, as I suppose makes sense, considering the... stereotype, the way I like to kind of think of that Warlord is playing very fragile indeed. All these Shrouded Harlequins are just 1 HP units. These Incubus Warriors, of which we see a second copy put out to planet number 2, incredibly frail as a 3/1 unit. And then, of course, those Baharroth's Hawks, which we've yet to actually see. They themselves are, at best, a 3/2 unit, so not a lot of hit points associated with any of these cards, so I suppose it's good for Shirin that she's not up against anything along the lines of Orc Cannon or any number of other effects like that could just create a huge value discrepancy. But the initiative token is going to be in Urien's hand for this round, which kind of stinks for Urien because, once again, that's going to be Shirin's victory condition planet. She will have initiative next round, but we see a Bealtan Warp Spiders put out to planet number 1. Keep in mind, we've seen 2 copies of Gift of Isha gone for Baharroth, and that's going to be really, probably, statistically speaking, likely to be the remainder of all the devious combat tricks we can expect for her for the duration of this game here. That Bealtan Guardians, every time it attacks as a 1/3 unit, it's going to be able to take a peek at Shirin's deck, pick which of those two cards is going to be most desirable to remove. Looks as though she actually purchases the Slith Mercenary, and this is going to make an interesting choice for Urien. I'm not sure if he's actually passed yet. It's entirely possible. In regard to desirable just places to commit, I could see Baharroth going to planet number 3 just to ensure a route to kick that Incubus Warrior away from planet number 2 and make it all the more likely that she'll win. Aatrox Prime similarly could blast Urien's HQ, hit him, hit the Bealtan Warp Spider, hit the Prophetic Farseer. That would also be a pretty appealing option. I could certainly see going with that as well, but it looks as though Baharroth is going to end up going to planet number 2, which is nice for him because it does allow him the opportunity to adjust as necessary. Urien is being a little bit bold there in going to planet number 2 just because he's not able to mobile away, unlike Baharroth. So let's see if this actually comes back to bite Urien, unless we see his first combat action being to retreat, considering he's only got 4 hit points left. That is really not much to work with. Note that there's a tremendous pool of resource tokens there, so maybe we'll see some tricks out of Urien yet, but we're going to see combats at planet number 1 and 2. Planet number 1 is going to be 2 cards to the right for Urien. Planet number 2 is going to be 1 resource to the left for Baharroth. Planet number 3 and 4 are going to be a grand total of 4 resources, 1 card to the right for Urien. And now what exactly are we going to see in regard to combat? The initiative token is on the right. That means the Bealtan Warp Spiders and the Prophetic Farseer are going to have an opportunity to destroy that Shrouded Harlequin before it can potentially attack at all. What kind of stinks at planet number 1 is that the Bealtan Warp Spiders are going to want to attack to trigger their, look at the top 2 cards of the deck and do a discard thing. But if that happens, then they might not kill the Shrouded Harlequin, and then it'll survive to get an attack. But it looks as though we're seeing a little bit of risk. By the way, Baharroth did go to planet number 3, which is going to be allowing the route opportunity, and that's the Shrouded Harlequin destroyed. And what unit are we going to see exhausted? Looks as though the Bealtan Warp Spiders actually got a copy of Archon's Terror that they destroyed. And, oh god, that really hurts. That's going to be Urien Rakarth discarded by the, or not discarded, exhausted. And I'm not actually sure what card that is. I think that's the Flayed Skullslaver that we see discarded in Baharroth's discard pile, our new ally 3-cost Dark Eldar economy unit, and now we're seeing battle erupt at planet number 2. Looks as though a copy of Incubus Warrior was killed by Urien. He does still maintain initiative, and now we see an Incubus Warrior take a swing at Urien for 3 points of damage. A Slith Mercenary takes a swing at that Shrouded Harlequin. And that's kind of a shame the way that the mathematics broke down, because that means Urien with 5 points of damage. I guess if Shirin would have had an opportunity to shield, things could have gone so differently. If Baharroth would have stayed at that planet, things could have gone so differently. We likely would have seen a bloodying of Urien. Unless Urien happened to have, say, his Ichor Gauntlet or any number of different 2 shield icon cards, Shadowfield, Suffering, Raid. I think there may be one other, but it looks as though Yvarn is actually triggered. Very, very curious. And that's going to be a copy of Void Pirate put into play and a Wraithguard Revenant. I suppose Shirin was hoping to hit with a Klavex War Leader in triggering Yvarn there, but she gets that free 3/2. Definitely not bad. And now we're going to see battle break out at planet number 1. So it's going to be Baharroth versus the Bealtan Warp Spiders, and Baharroth decides to retreat. Very interesting, but she's playing it pretty safe. Now that's going to be Urien with kind of a nice setup here at planet number 1 to block off Shirin's victory condition. Urien himself only has 1 green strongpoint icon, so Urien's going to have to take Yvarn and Ossus 4 for victory himself. But it looks as though since our, Urien generally plays a longer game, perhaps he'll be able to come back, perhaps not. We see a copy of the Eldar Survivalist put out to planet number 4 by our initiative token possessing player Baharroth, and that's really a bit of a shame on her part that she has that in her deck at the moment, not because it's necessarily a terrible card, but just because it pays so much, and based on the composition of Urien's deck, I think it's going to be very trivial indeed for him to counter that unit, and I can only only imagine how potentially crippled Shirin's economy must have been since the onset of the game due to the holding cell blocking things off there. And I happen to mention that Eldar Survivalist is easily trumped. What exactly do we see but a Siren Zithlax absolutely locking down that planet? The way that she works is she's got 2 command icons, so, enough said, she wins command, but any additional economy units deployed to that planet to bring additional command icons to bear are going to be deployed only to exhaust, which means they do not count their command icons against her, and that basically means she's going to win that planet unless we see a promotion augment that Eldar Survivalist, or in case Baharroth himself decides to go to that planet. And at the moment, I can't imagine Baharroth is going to go to planet number 1, just because there's going to be a lot of stuff of Urians likely showing up to planet number 1. But what exactly do we see? Looks like we see another copy of the Prophetic Farseer put into play. That's going to be Cry of the Wind, the signature event that allows a unit that moves to move to another adjacent planet, discarded, as well as a copy of Doom, which certainly she doesn't have the resources to pay for it right now, but Doom, I was going to say it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but when you're looking to destroy 2 of your units along with 3 of your opponents, worst thing in the world may not be fitting, but it's definitely not the best value play at 4 resources and, of course, the cost of a card. But we see a copy of Warlock Destructor put out to planet number 1, and I think that all but guarantees that Baharroth is not going to be able to win the game this round. I can't imagine anything that an Eldar player can do with 2 resources to overcome such reckless hate as is present afforded by the Dark Eldar and their Eldar allies at planet number 1. Because I haven't mentioned it yet, I think those are excellent sleeves that Shirin is playing with. A nice little Growlithe there, and I can only imagine that at this point she's passed. She's got 2 cards in hand. She's certainly got a dearth of economy units on the field. It's looking as though she's not going to be able to win command at any planet unless Baharroth and Urien both end up, unless Baharroth ends up being sent to his own planet. Urien, I can assume at this point, if Pejhmon is anything like me, he'll probably be ever so slightly risky and not send Urien to the first planet, so favorable for him. I could definitely see Urien send himself to planet number 3, or he could be a little bit risky, since he's got a couple, I suppose he could be risky and maybe stupid now and send Urien to planet number 3, or since he's got a couple planets between now and his victory condition, he could probably do the intelligent move, which I'd have not maybe seen, I don't know. But in any case, he should go to planet number 1, just guarantee he doesn't lose, and then I think he can stand to go to planet number 3, unless we see Baharroth go to planet number 5, in which case his HQ would be full of units to get blasted. But I really don't think that's a very worthwhile move for Baharroth. We ended up seeing another copy of the Incubus Warrior, I believe, put out to planet number 4, but let's see how things go. Baharroth does go to planet number 4. That's planet number 3, sorry, the victory condition there for Urien. She's going to be able to, if she wants, move to Aatrox Prime, and it looks as though Urien very curiously goes to Aatrox Prime. So I suppose Urien just wanted to make sure that the economic stranglehold keeps up under, on Shirin under any circumstances possible. And now that's going to be 1 resource at planet number 1 for Pejhmon, 2 resources at planet number 2 for Pejhmon, 2 resources at planet number 3 for Shirin, although she's certainly running low on cards with which to buy anything with those. And then that Eldar Survivalist is incredibly blocked off there at our final planet. So Baharroth is going to use Mobile to go to planet number 4, which itself was 1 resource and 2 cards. For Urien, note that the initiative happens to be in Shirin's hand, and by choosing to mobile to that last planet, she might be able to bloody Urien, but let's see how things go. Yvonne is going to be captured entirely uncontested by Urien, and we're going to see combat at that last planet. She's going to risk it. She takes a swing, and is Urien going to be bloodied or not? There we go. That's going to be 1 bloodied Urien Rakarth, ladies and gentlemen, but now that's going to be a swing swing of 2 from Siren Zithlex on Baharroth, and that's going to be our Swooping Hawk. With only 2 points of damage, the mighty Eldar Survivalist takes a swing for 0. And now what are we going to see? We see Baharroth retreat, we see the Eldar Survivalist retreat, and that means Aatrox Prime is going to be able to either fire into the HQ, which in my opinion would probably be a waste, or Aatrox Prime can take a shot at our planet number, currently 3, potentially kill the Incubus Warrior and deal 1 point of damage to that Wraithguard Revenant, but it looks as though instead we're pushing for Bloodying Baharroth. That's going to be a Baharroth with a single hit point, considering just how many 2 shield icon cards that we've seen gone. I think I'd have maybe pushed to kill off that dangerous Incubus Warrior, but I suppose at this point Urien maybe thinks that he's reached enough critical mass that he needs not worry about, say, the loss of individual units. But it is a little bit scary that Urien is bloodied. So there we see our HQ phase come and go. 4 resources, 2 cards for each player. That's going to be a 3-cost, I believe 3-cost, Visions of Agony played out by Urien, because he no longer gets that discount on torture events as a bloodied, I believe, 1/5. And now he's going to be able to basically just pick and choose as his first deploy action any of Shirin's cards that he does not want her to have. So if there was anything she had that might be able to let her come back and trump Urien here, we're going to see it destroyed now. So let's see, what could it possibly be? She's got quite a few resources there. Looks like, I think, a grand total of 9, perhaps 8, compared to Urien's 6. Urien could have a Klavex Warleader. I suppose in Spying, Shirin's hand, I saw Baharroth's Hawks. I saw another copy of Doom, which she does have enough resources to pay for it, and that would definitely be a contender for cards to get rid of. I can't quite tell what the remaining card is. It might be a Deathly Web Hollows. But I cannot tell. Perhaps Banner of the Ashen Sky. Looks like I can maybe see some sort of a tent pole or something like that. But for this round, yeah, that's, I believe, Banner of the Ashen Sky. That's going to be the signature support for Baharroth Gone. It's basically whenever a unit moves, you exhaust it, and that's going to be +2 attack for its next attack this phase. There we see that Doom played. That's going to be a Warlock Destructor and several other units destroyed there by Urien. Urien has certainly paid through the nose to keep that copy of Warlock Destructor in play throughout the course of this game. That Doom is now gone. That's still something like 5 resources left for our Eldar player. Theron is on the line this turn, but it doesn't really matter to either player. Ossus 4 is where it's, the interesting stuff is going to take place next round. But we see yet another copy of the Prophetic Farseer, and that is going to be all kinds of card discard for our, Urien player throughout this game. Lots of milling. Those 3 copies of the Prophetic Farseer, the Bealtan Warp Guardians, those 2 copies of Visions of Agony, although one was nullified. Looks as though that Prophetic Farseer, by the way, whiffed. That was just a Spirit Seer, Erythal, and 2 Eldar Survivalists that we saw. Some economy units and some damage-removing unique unit. But considering that he himself is a prime target, I don't think you'd get too much damage removal. I think Urien's forces would have been able to outpace Spirit Seer Erythal, stripping 1 point of damage at a time from Baharroth. But we do see a copy of Baharroth's Hawks put out of planet number 2. If they're at the same planet as Baharroth, they can attack for 3, but if Baharroth leaves, note he's got 1 hit point remaining, so he's not going to be sticking around for long. Then they revert to a 0-2 attacker. So we certainly see just a wealth of units sitting across there from Baharroth, and things are looking pretty grim for Shirin. Urien's got so many powerful army units sitting around. Both of our players are deciding where exactly they want to go. In regard to command, there is no safe place anywhere for Baharroth. He's going to want to go to a planet where he can use his first action to retreat, and then he's basically going to just lose combat at that planet. He cannot afford to be bloodied, but that's going to be Baharroth to planet number 2. Urien to planet number 3, so that's going to be 2 resources at planet number 1 to the right for Pejhmon. Planet number 2 is going to be 2 resources to the left for Shirin. Planet number 3 is going to be 1 card, 1 resource to the right for Urien, with an additional card from the Void Pirate I almost did not notice. So we're going to see combat break out at planet number 1, unless we happen to see I think we could still stand to see one additional copy of Gift of Isha that could bring something back into play, but I don't think there's anything more formidable than an Eldar Survivalist. Well, I guess there is an Eldar Survivalist at the top of the discard pile, so that would not work too well. And Farron is one. That's another red material icon for Urien, and that's going to be the Baharroth's Hawks. Routed, which is actually kind of an interesting choice. Note that they're a 3-2, but of course, as soon as Baharroth leaves, they revert to a 0-2. So I'd have been pretty tempted to actually get rid of probably that Mighty Wraith Knight, the Wraith Guard Revenant, mixing up my drone trait units there. So we're going to see, the Prophetic Farseer, that Bealtan Warp Spiders return to Urien's HQ. The initiative token does happen to be in the hands of Baharroth, whom we see retreat, so Baharroth technically should be exhausted at this moment, but not that big of a deal. We see an Incubus warrior fight brother against brother, Incubus killing Incubus, and one is dead on Baharroth's side. That's going to be the Wraithguard Revenant swinging for 3, killing off that already exhausted Incubus warrior, and that's going to be 2 points of damage from the Slith Mercenary, killing the Wraithguard Revenant, which could potentially return to play this next round if we want to forego winning command. That's going to be Ossus 4, meaning one stolen resource, and then Aatrox Prime is triggered by Urien. That's going to be a point of damage dealt to the HQ. That's a 2-shield icon card, Empower, discarded to preserve the life of Baharroth there. So this is presumably going to be our final HQ phase. Looks as though Shirin shows her hand, probably out of despair, loss of all hope, mourning, breathing her losses, all the dead, Eldar, Dark Eldar. It's a dying species, folks. This is looking pretty grim, so when brother fights brother, the entire race loses. But in any case, 2 Eldar Survivalists aren't going to win her the game. And there we go, we see the GG. So very good game, very well played by both of our players. Congratulations to Urien Rakarth, piloted by Pejhmon Kamaie, for taking home the victory on this one. So some pretty spectacular play by both of our players, some very interesting decks played by our experimental duo here, but Prophetic Farseer certainly did a little bit of work for Urien. Those Bealtan Warp Spiders were in and of themselves reasonably useful, and Baharroth was unable to take it home today. So that holding cell, I don't frankly know if that really made much of a difference or not. I don't think Shirin ended up winning Bealtan Guardians. We didn't see that Flayed Skull Slaver. We didn't see, I believe it's called Deathly Web Hollows, the new loyal support for the Eldar, particularly well suited for Baharroth. But definitely let me know in the comments section below what you thought of this video, what you think of Urien in this post-Decree of Ruin release world we all now live in. But as always, I'll just end this video by saying, if you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already, or if you are already subscribed, as ever, you're always encouraged to share this content, as the more likes, the more views these videos receive, the more new players may stumble upon Conquest, they may try the game out, they may like it, join our community, and of course, help us to send all the greater message to Fantasy Flight Games to continue to support this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, I would encourage you to do so through Twitter or on Facebook, and now more than ever, I'm looking for players just like Pejhmon, just like Shirin, and Alexander Chimadon to send me live-action tabletop footage akin to the video that you watched today. So, if you've got a phone, if you've got a camera, let me know, and I'll try to give you some pointers for how to set up. But as always, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to donate to help support the Hive Tyrant, I would encourage you to donate to my Patreon. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, be sure to check back in again soon for ever more Conquest LCG content to come.